about right. I think starting off a conversation with you with our history, talking about circumcision seems to be the best idea.
Especially as you're chopping vegetables.
On a chopping block right next to McGrundle.
Yes. Okay, so I hit the record button for those just tuning in. Let me give you a little introduction. The reason I'm asking Pat is these questions is because not only does he run Warm Up and Workout with his wife Taz, but you also have a podcast, The Tribe Life, with your wife, and you talk a lot about all things family and children.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked you about vaccines, and then we started to talk about circumcision, and you were giving me your answer before you cut out.
Yeah, my answer was just that, like, there is no reason for it. It's like one of those things where if you think about it a little bit more logically, the only studies on it are, like, I think later in life, once kids become sexually active, there's a slightly higher risk of transmitting an STD. And, I think that with the education that I will give my children around sex and STDs and, doing the right thing around suiting up and making that happen, I think I'm willing to take the risk rather than have one of the first experiences of a new infant's life, a human being cutting around their penis.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I don't remember it, but that doesn't mean there's not trauma, like being serious.
Right.
I
I
watched
agree.
a documentary about an athlete who all of his trauma throughout his life wound up causing him to have to retire early because he couldn't play his sport anymore.
Wow.
So I'm sure there's there's trauma in our brain that we just couldn't digest, if you will, at that young age. So
right. It's like, it's pretty funny because people are like, oh yeah, there's no issue there. They don't, there's no trauma. It's like, how can you say that? Like a baby's brain is so powerful. When you have them, you learn how intelligent they really are, and it's wild. So, like, the idea that, I mean, the kid can't tell you other than the fact that it screams like crazy. But I don't know. It's a funny subject for me because obviously I'm biased. I'm not circumcised, and I didn't circumcise any of my kids. But at the same time, I think pretty rationally and logically, and it just doesn't follow a logical pattern of like, yep, drop the dick, because like later in life you can just do that, right? Like, yeah. Say you really wanted it. Say you had an issue later in life, you just go, cool, I'm gonna go in and get it done. And they're like, yeah, it's way more painful. It's like, it's not way more painful. It's just you can vocalize it now.
Yeah, and when at least as far as I know, like I said, I don't remember when I got it done. Jewish people do it. I think it's 7 days after birth, and they don't put any Novocaine on you. Back then, it was just like they put some whiskey on your gums or whatever, and literally cut your penis. So, yeah. Well, that's another topic, but let me give you a little more of an introduction. Most people listening to this podcast will recognize Pat Barber from the cover of the Every Seconds Count DVD. And maybe from your warm up and workout, which we'll talk about. You were also flow master on the level 1 and level 2 seminar scene, and you've just been involved in CrossFit for a very long period of time. And you may not even remember this, but in 2008, I showed up and took my level 2 at Santa Cruz, and you came in and hit Fran that day, and you threw down like a 2-minute Fran and laid over in the corner feeling sorry for yourself for like the next 5 hours. So I don't know if you remember that. But
I remember that. Now I'll tell you, that's one of my favorite stories, and I totally remember that. The bigger detail on that was I almost quit. Do you remember that?
Yeah. You were like, no, I'm done. And I believe it was Tony Budding.
Yep.
Who's like, no, you still, like, with a rest in there, you still hit probably like a 230 Fran.
It was 305. It was the actual 305, but I did take a very long break after the 21. So I had never gone that hard. Like, I'm not new, but like that workout, Fran's so potent, you know that. Everyone who's done it knows that, like, when you underestimate it, it hands you your underestimation on a golden platter. But like, I did 21, 21 pull-ups, and those were not too hard things for me, but I didn't breathe on the thrusters. I just did 21 thrusters as hard and fast as I could. I'm like, it can be 15.9 afterwards. Got back to the 15, did one thruster, and then thought I was going to die. So I dropped the weight and sat on the ground and just looked at Tony and was like, hey, dude, something's wrong. Something's wrong. I can't do this. So I panicked, and he told me he'd never coach me again if I didn't get up and finish. So I waited like 35, 40 seconds, got up and finished.
Yeah, and still a faster time than most people will ever have when it comes to France. So well done. And at the time, I mean, you were one of the originals being out in Santa Cruz. I know you had a volleyball background and kind of stumbled into CrossFit because your coach was implementing it. And then did you think back then in 2006, 2007 that, 15 years later, this would be your full-time job still?
100% no. I had no intention of making this my career or anything like that. And I was talking to someone else recently, and I don't think many of us have the intention of it being like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do for my life. It's when you start young, you think of it as like, I guess at the time, the idea of being a personal trainer wasn't something that I aspired to or even had much of a care for. Like I didn't enjoy gyms. I thought they were stupid. And the idea of going to a gym and working there and getting paid to do so was so foreign to me. CrossFit as a program was the thing that changed my mind on all of that because it was so different than what I had ever seen before. But the idea of, even when I found CrossFit, I didn't have any sense that I wanted to be in the business. So I had no idea I'd be here.
Who was your biggest influence, not just in getting into CrossFit, but then, right now in 2019, you're one of the best coaches in the world. You're a flow master on the most prestigious coaching crew out there. Who was one of your biggest influences in developing as a coach?
I mean, I would say Mike Bergner. I don't know if he knows this, but he was the first guy, the Olympic lifting guru, but he was the first guy I ever saw coach who I really was like, oh my goodness, that's possible, to be that good. And I don't know if you've had the experience, but for me, one of the first times I did it, I went down to his college. He was at a high school. I think it was a high school. It was a high school weightlifting room that they had, and it was just platforms all around the whole room. And we were running a seminar there, and he had 20 people in a room, and he was taking them through the snatch progression. And sorry, that's my baby in the background. He's getting frustrated because he's can't eat whatever egg Taz has given him. But Taz, could you keep him just a little quieter, maybe?
He's fine. It's good to show the people the balance in your life. But yeah, talking about Coach B.
You should have seen the glare I just got from even mentioning it being quieter. So
yeah, I don't want to be the reason the Barbers get divorced.
Trust me, that would not be possible. We have a decent level of communication. She just tells me I'm lame, and I go, "You're right. That was a bad idea. I apologize."
So Coach B, you stumbled.
So Coach B.
Yep.
I'm seeing him coach this group of 20 people, and he has them all do one thing. He gets to the snatch porch. He's like, all right, we're jumping land with the bar overhead. He says that, and then he goes around the room, and I just see him stand in one spot, and he's like, okay, you keep your weight back in your heels longer. You get a little bit more aggressive through the middle. You turn over a little faster. You do this, and he's just nailing it. One rep gave 7 cues, and I was like, what? What? And my mind was just blown, and I was like, that's not possible. I will never be to that level. But he was the first inspiration that really made me take coaching seriously, because he's so motivating. He makes you just go harder than you want to go. He makes you not go harder, but he gets more out of you than you think you have. And he's just so technically sound, but it's all in a package that's just kind of nonchalant and, good. He's effective. And I would say he's one of my biggest influences.
Well, glad to hear that. I had him on a couple of weeks ago, so I wish I would have heard that to tell him, but I'll certainly relay the message. But I think, it's important to note you were around Coach Glassman at the time, so it shows just how good Coach Bergner is, that even side by side with Coach Glassman, you're recognizing them. And I think the other thing that the listeners should take from that is, I mean, meanwhile, you're an 18, 19-year-old kid. Even back then, Coach Bergner was like 95, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But he was probably, 60, 62. And you're like, it wasn't about his performance.
Nope.
It wasn't like, oh, I can't coach people because I'm not that good. Like, he was well past his prime, and you were still in awe and receptive to that. Because a lot of people get that mixed up. Like, I have to be the best athlete to be the best coach, and it's not true at all.
No, I mean, people care about what you can make them feel and do. I would say having an athletic capacity or looking a certain way, or being able to do certain things that other people can't. It makes certain situations easier. So certain people that you have to deal with, you immediately have that rapport with. They respect you inherently because of the way they view the world. But I would say to truly be effective, you need absolutely none of that. It just might be a little bit more difficult for you to deal with certain individuals who are bullheaded or stupid or have a misconception of what it means to be a good coach or an athlete.
How would you recommend those? So somebody, we coach level 1 just about every weekend, 40 to 50 new, level 1 trainers getting out there. What's your advice for those guys that, all right, I'm coaching now, but there are athletes better than me, or maybe they were my peers in class with me last Friday. Now I'm coaching them on Monday.
Yeah. So the idea is like, so you're saying like you've got this guy who just becomes a new coach and they step into a class and now they have to coach him, right?
Yeah. And I think we both know ideally there's a lot happening between you get your certificate and your coaching classes, but sometimes there's not. And even if there is, it's still intimidating. What's some advice you would give to newer coaches to get that confidence like you're talking about?
Yeah, I would say just really connecting on a personal level before throwing out the detailed coaching cues. So you don't come at every situation like, hey, I know everything, listen to me, because obviously you don't. So the confidence can't come from that side of things. What it can be is it can be a connection on a personal level, like, hey, I'm here with you. I want to get the best for you. Like, how's your family? Man, I love the outfit that you have. So connecting on that personal level first, and then offering the pointers and stuff that are up to your ability level. So, in all honesty, and this, like when you coach people, there's very little that differs from when you become a really good coach to when you first start. You're looking for the same stuff, and it's very little things. It's like a very few amount of things. You're looking at like weight in the heels, knees driving out, full range of motion, midline stability throughout every movement, good core to extremity, not violating that, and sound hip function. Like you're looking for that across every movement. When you first learn, you have very few tools for dealing with those things. And I think as you get more experience, you just get more tools for dealing with the same situation. So it's not like people, when they first start, know nothing. They know exactly the major things that are pop up 99% of the time. They just have few tools for dealing with it. So I would say focus on developing your toolbox to build the confidence there. Get out there and coach, but connect on a personal level first, because people will always respect that. If you connect on a personal level and they know that you have the best intention for them, you can offer up a bad cue and it doesn't work, and there's no harm, no foul. Whereas if you just attack people with, I know what I'm talking about, and it doesn't work, they'll be like, this guy sucks, or gal.
Almost all of the great coaches I've had on the podcast have basically said exactly what you've said. Keep it simple and care. And, you're really, I think you excel at that second one. Everything you just talked about, you connect. I mean, you've been doing this since you're a teenager, and your ability to connect is unparalleled. But to the average person, what does that mean, and how can they develop that? Because it's a skill. So
totally.
How can someone that doesn't coach like you did full time, like maybe they're doing 2 or 4 hours a week, how can they get better at that connection piece? What are some things they can immediately implement into their?
Yeah, I mean that's something I've thought on a lot, because it's definitely a reality, and I think people vary on the spectrum with regards to their level of emotional intelligence. What is their empathy levels? How well do they sense human emotion? how well do they, deal with people in an immediate setting without knowing them. And I do think it boils down to emotional intelligence. And I think there's two things they can do right away to start building that capacity. And I think one is reflect. So you need to post any interaction, reflect on how you impacted that interaction. So in order for you to do that, you have to pay attention. So you have to do something, pay attention to the response, and then assess whether or not that response was what you wanted or it wasn't what you wanted, and then assess how you can be different in the future. That can be as simple as coaching and saying, hey, I throw out a cue and I watch the response and I kind of go from there. Or it can be the manner with which you speak to people. You introduce yourself, you go through like a handshake and you go, man, that handshake didn't pan out how I wanted it to. Let me reevaluate how I do that. But that reflection is, and that's ability to look at self is a huge thing that never stops. It's like it never stops happening. You constantly are reflecting on every interaction to become more and more efficient in the space. That's kind of a more intangible tool because it just takes you paying more attention to yourself, and some people are better or worse at it. I would say a very practical tool you can use is the Ford method of communication. You seen that?
I may have, but I don't know that I've heard it referred to as that. What is that?
So Ford stands for Family, Occupation, Recreation, and Dreams, FORD. And you basically, when getting a deeper level of communication with people or when trying to connect with them, if you talk about those things, then and try to get out of them what those things are for them, they have a much deeper connection with you. So it's kind of like a checklist in your head. If you don't know what to do or how to do it, you just go in and you talk to people about family. Hey, like I saw you in here. I saw a guy the other day who looked like you. Do you happen to have a brother? And no, you don't have a brother? Damn. Well, sister? Nope, none of those things. Only child, eh? I was an only child as well. Let's talk about being only children together. Like whatever it is, you bring up family and you can kind of get some sort of a connection because people have that there. So family, occupation. So what people do for a living, they do it all the time. They're either stoked on it or they have a lot of knowledge on it. So it's a pretty easy thing to converse on. Recreations, what do people do for fun? Oftentimes it's CrossFit, but maybe they have other hobbies. It's good to know. And dreams, and it's like dreams are things that people aspire to be or have, and if you can somehow support their dreams, they will really, really appreciate you. A lot of people, especially in this day and age, are more practical about dreams. It's like, hey, I want to open up a hot dog stand. They're like, well, what's the financial viability of a hot dog stand? So if you as their coach can come in and be like, dude, hot dogs are awesome, power to you, like get after that hot dog stand, people feel a lot more connected to you. So I think that those are two practical tools that you can use for just kind of building that rapport and that connection with people.
Yeah, I think that's great. Ford, pretty easy to remember. And if you're coaching, try to maybe implement that with everybody in your class or everybody you interact with, and they will certainly like you better. And that's the big first step, showing people that you care. Your life has changed since, CrossFit started for you. You're married now. You got 3 kids. What is the key to balance in life when, be it box owner and family, be it online business and family, traveling? What are some of the keys to success the Barbers have found?
So keys to success and keys to balance are kind of different for me. But maybe they're the same. I think one of the keys to balance for me is finding somebody who naturally balances me out. So somebody who represents a lot of what I'm not. We're very similar to Az and I in a lot of ways, but she's also very different in how she deals with the world. And my inadequacies are oftentimes her strengths. So when we go through life and I'm slacking in certain areas or ways of being, like she fills those holes, and I would say that is a big key to us having the things that we want to have. So I guess that's success, but it's also balance because we prioritize different things. She prioritizes, things that I don't prioritize, and I prioritize things that she doesn't prioritize. So it kind of helps maintain a bit of balance in our lives. We also have been incredibly lucky with how we've positioned ourselves. Like we were around right place, right time, took advantage of good opportunities that we had. we kind of lived a life that for us, we wanted to prioritize family, and we've set ourselves up to maybe not earn as much money, but do whatever we want. So like, if we were to do different things, we could probably earn a lot more money. Or if we were to leverage our business in certain ways, we could earn a lot more money, but we don't, because we really, really want to raise our kids through these, first 10 years of their lives. So where they're still looking for parental guidance and they're still looking for parental approval. And then once they get a little bit older, then maybe we'll spend more time away from them. So that's part of it for us. I'd say the other thing too is communication. We're really, really big on having everything out there. There's an ultimate level of vulnerability I have with my wife. I'm never unwilling to communicate with her. Like, someone phrased it for me really well recently. It's like, you don't seek out, like, you're not confrontational, but you're not opposed to confrontation. You get it? So it's like, instead of being like constantly trying to confront people about, oh, this is what I believe, blah, 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 that's not it. But you're not opposed, like you're not opposed to confrontation. Like, you're willing to get in there and do it because the outcome on the other side is usually a better understanding of any given situation or any given person.
Well, I think, and that's just speaks to who you are. You're very open-minded. And,
yeah.
If somebody caught the beginning of this episode and they tuned out because they're like, I'm all for circumcision and that's the only way to be, cool. But I think, you and I would also be willing to have that discussion with someone and not take it personally and not get too emotionally invested. You're allowed to have your belief and I can have mine. But the people that don't want that are the people that maybe some people actually like confrontation, but they're not actually open-minded.
Right. And I think that's where you see, a lack of growth.
Exactly. And I think, go ahead.
I was just going to say, on either end of the spectrum, if you don't like confrontation, or if you like confrontation, but you're not open-minded.
Yeah.
Like, those are the two times where you lack growth.
Yeah. Maybe someone listening is pregnant and we convince them not to circumcise.
Boom.
Right there. I'm just upset because, we talked, and for the listeners, in case you are curious, I am circumcised, and I'm concerned that I'm not getting everything I could be getting out of sex. They say, all those sensory receptors are in the foreskin. So who knows? Another question I have is, you talked about kind of almost like creating this financial independence, if you will. Let's talk a little about warm up and workout. I've had a couple other people on. James has been on, who's involved in Hand Plan, as has Austin. MDV has been on for NC Fit Collective.
Yeah.
And all of you guys do such great things. What helps you guys stand apart in kind of a noisy world these days of programming?
So for us, I think we have a pretty firm, everyone does. We have a pretty firm belief structure on what we're trying to do. Like, we're trying to follow the CrossFit methodology as, implemented in a CrossFit facility the way we've seen it really, really work over the last 14 years. So I'd say what helps us stand apart is we're a little bit simpler than most, in the sense that the actual program is very straightforward. But what we are not simple in is the lesson plan, because our belief is less on the program being the differing factor and more on the delivery of that program being the differing factor. So what we do is we back the coach up as hard as we can on basically setting them up for success via really, really detailed lesson plans. I make a video for every day of the week on how I'd approach it as a coach. People have full access to me. And the problem, I think, with ours is it takes a lot of buy-in from the gyms that are following us. So it's not a plug and play. And the thing is, we don't want it to be a plug and play. We don't want a carbon copy of whatever's happening there. And I don't believe that gyms will ever succeed if that's their belief structure around running a facility. What we do takes work. It takes investment from the people who own the gyms. to implement it in a way that fits their culture, and makes it so their coaches buy into the overall program. So I can't truly speak to what the other guys do because I don't truly know, but I know what we do, and I know that we're pretty detailed with everything that we put out there, and most of our education is on the coaching side of it. Like, what can we do to set the coach up for the most success so that they can go out there and really execute?
Well, it sounds to me like I hear a lot from the coaches, but also from box owners saying, how can I help develop my coaches? It sounds to me like right there is a good way to get to improve. Very few coaches are getting constant development. And, then they wonder why when they show up for their level 2, they get such feedback, or why they're not passing their level 3. Sounds to me like this is a great opportunity for them to learn more and improve. And they
that's
can always,
exactly it. Yep.
On your website, they can check out a free 2-week sample. But
Yep.
I've made it very clear to the listeners, if I owned a box right now, I would be using someone else's programming like yours, because the hardest part when I owned a box was just to create that synergy from the 5 a.m. class to the 7 a.m. to the noon to the evening, and having your coaches all learn and see the same types of things. Bring your own flavor to it, but now at least we're getting the same product out there to every class.
Yeah, and I think here's a word of warning to any coaches who choose to outsource programming. It's something that I've been thinking on pretty deeply recently is when you first start CrossFit, and you generally do the program on your own. You either follow.com, or you followed the program, or you created your own program when you were a coach. That is. The other option was you followed somebody's program who was like the other guy at the gym, the gym owner, the guy who was there and he was programming, he was the person doing it, or she was the person doing it. So there was a certain level of trust inherently built into the back and forth of like, I know you're doing a good program. I'm going to put my faith in it, right? I'm going to give my buy-in there. So as a coach, when I started coaching, say, Hollis's program that he was putting out there, I bought into Hollis. So when I was delivering the program, I had buy-in into that program because I knew Hollis. There's a certain level of personal connection. Now, what's happening, I think, in this space is that because people are outsourcing programming to kind of a nebulous third party, whether it's Hamplan or Train for the Win or the it's like the end user doesn't necessarily buy into the person who's doing it. And what happens is if you don't have a coach who's bought into the person who's doing it, so maybe the owner bought it, the coach has to deliver it, and now the end user has to do it. When you have a coach who's like unsure of whether or not they buy in, then what can happen is maybe a member comes up and says, hey, I don't agree with what we're doing. And the coach is really easy to go. It's really easy for them to be like, yeah, you know what? I don't get it either. Because they have this disassociation with they don't quite buy in. There's no face-to-face. There's no buy-in from that coach. There's no real other way to say it. So I would say that if you're going to outsource programming, you as the owner or a coach, a head coach, or whatever it is, you have to get people on board, bought in to whoever's doing it, or to however it's being done. You can't have them on the fence, because if they're on the fence and then that brings up, it gets brought up in the community, because people are always going to complain. Whatever program you're doing, they're always going to complain. Then there's no dissonance. There's no separation of like, yeah, I also don't agree with it. There's not a pause. They're like, oh, well, let's talk about it. Let's have this conversation. And I think that's something that's happening now with third-party programmers, is it's almost creating a divide in these little like weird communities. So that's just a heads up of something that I've seen.
Well, at least we know, someone's buying into warm up and workout. It's not just your athletic, background. Although the games only list you as showing up once, I believe you were there at least twice.
I was at the games 2008, 9, 10, 11, 14, 15.
You gotta go online, because there's a typo there.
Yeah, I'll sort it out.
Right. So you were there more than once. You're a high level athlete, but you also have all this coaching experience behind you. I mean, you were involved the old school. You go in the videos. the original Santa Cruz box, Greg Amundsen, Coach Glassman teaching those classes. You've been around for a very long time and you've seen it all. So agreed. You got to have that right buy-in, but there's not many people that are better to buy into. With such a busy life and schedule, what has become one thing you are better at saying no to?
Something that I've become better at saying no to. I mean, any sort of evening event, anything that it's like people are like, hey, let's go out in the evening. I'm just like, nah, man. Like, that's just not viable with my lifestyle. Like, it doesn't work because you stay up too late. It doesn't work because I'm away from family. It just doesn't work in the general scheme of things. So I've become better at just being like, no, I can't do that.
You like me here every weekend, whether it's at a level 1 or level 2, I want to do this. How do I become a red shirt? Now, if someone's watching the video, it's like, all right, Pat's literally making potatoes, doing a podcast, getting yelled at by his wife. And then you're going to go away to, you were at a meeting this week, if I'm correct,
I was, yeah.
So then you're going to leave on Friday. Hey, Taz, take care of the 3 kids. I'll be back. Type of
yeah,
thing.
Right. Right.
So what are some of the things people don't see when it comes to being on seminar staff? And again, no one's complaining. We love it. I think you talk to any trainer, we would do it for free. We love showing up Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. But what are some of the things that people don't see that goes into making a red shirt?
Yeah, I mean, there's an insane amount of work and feedback. And I think that you've talked to other red shirts on here, so I'm sure they've given the same thing, but like, it is a culture centered around feedback. I've been on staff since 2007. And every seminar I've ever worked, as well as you have, you get a laundry list of things that you could be better at afterwards. So you have to come to terms with getting tons and tons and tons of feedback. And when you go through those 20 to 30-year-old years, 20 all the way up, like, it's not always easy to hear some of the things that are told to you. Like, you work your butt off on certain components of how you present or how you carry yourself or how you interact with a team. And then every weekend it just gets torn apart. So there's this breaking down of everyone. And there's this acceptance of, I'm going to get feedback. I'm going to get feedback every time. And I think that that's one of the things that people don't really see is like, it's not like these guys just got to where they were at. It's like every weekend we get that back and forth, and you have to accept it. So I think that's one of the big things that people don't see.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best and worst part, not worst, but hardest, right? I vividly remember one of my first seminars, Austin Maliolo sitting me down for my feedback, literally giving me, 10 minutes of things that I need to do better, not wrong, but could do better. And I was like, did I do anything right? And he was like, I don't have a list of things you do right because I expect it. You're wearing a red shirt. And he's like, you're good. That's why you're here. And granted,
Austin, he's got that way with words.
Yeah, I was gonna say, granted, we both know that might be a little extreme, but it changed my outlook. I'm like, I am good. That's why I'm here. What can I do better? And if you're not willing to accept feedback, then you're not going to be a suitable member of the team and be willing to give feedback.
100%. And I think what's getting more and more developed is the delivery of that feedback, right? And I think that that's something that I was in a weird world when I was coaching coaches. I had 70 coaches in the Bay Area that we were coaching, and you start to realize that people hear feedback totally differently. So depending on who they are, you have to deliver it in a different way. And I would say that that's something that CrossFit as a company and the Flow Masters have had to learn over time. And what you'll notice with the better Flow Masters or the more experienced Flow Masters is they have a unique delivery of that feedback to a way that you can hear it. So you always walk away from the conversation being like, I see how I can improve. And it's not like you feel super great about yourself, but you go, okay, I get that. Whereas some people, when you leave them, you're like, I wonder how they picked that apart. Or like, and it was just in the way it was delivered. I mean, at the Flow Master weekend, we even got this, just the other day, the meeting, one of the pieces of feedback, or no, it was someone was saying it. I think it was Joe Alexander. He just like muttered it under his breath midway between one of his funny things that he was saying on stage. But he was like, you can say anything to anyone. It's just how you say it. And I think that's being developed and has been developed by the more experienced flows to a point where people can hear things a lot easier. And that's it. It's cool.
Well, I can tell you, and I'm sure you would say the same. It's impacted the way, I handle conflict even in my marriage. So it's made me a better person. All right.
Yep.
I know you're busy. Taz has like 8 children strapped to her. So last question. I always ask every guest, what's a book or more that you recommend everybody read?
I listen to audiobooks. So first off, I'm going to say, if you haven't listened to the entire Harry Potter series, listen to the Harry Potter series. It's really good. But a real book in terms of actually learning something from it rather than just a boy and his magical inheritance. I would say the Charles Duhigg, the
Power of Habit.
Power of Habit's fantastic, but one, if you're just in for like more fantastic information, is Why We Sleep. I think Power of Habit made me reflect a lot on just kind of why things happen the way they do and how can you unwire that. And then Why We Sleep is just a fantastic wealth of knowledge on sleep. I'll give you the punchline though. You should really be sleeping. Sleep a lot.
Oh man, that's better. There was a guy on the Rogan podcast that Steve Haydock sent it to me, and it was basically like every weekend we are destroying ourselves sleeping in a hotel room. So.
Oh yeah, what was his gym?
Just when you're not sleeping in your own bed and your body's kind of still naturally awake, trying to protect itself, unsure of what's to come. But I'm sure a lot of the same stuff. Make sure sleep is vital, and people kind of take this pride in I don't need a lot of sleep when you do.
Oh yeah.
Well, other than warmupandworkout.com, where else can people find you, and where else can people learn more about Pat and Taz?
You can find us at outsidethebox.fit. That's a garage gym program that we do. So just kind of help people out in the garage. We also have the tribelife.family.
That's your podcast?
That's our parenting podcast. Yeah, we have like an Instagram account, and we do a parenting podcast where selfishly we talk to other parents about, what's going on in their lives and what's going right and what's going wrong. Because when you're parenting, you have no idea what you're doing. Like, nobody has any idea. So the point is, like, we all don't know what we're doing. Let's all chat about it. Let's see what you're doing and see how I can take some of that. And then just our Instagram account, Pat Barber CF, or Tamarin Barber, or Barber Tamarin, I believe is her Instagram account.
Cool. I'll make sure I get the right ones and post them in the show notes. But thank you very much. I enjoyed this entire conversation. I'll let you get back to parenting.
Thank you very much, Jay, dog.
Have a good rest of the day.
You too, my man.